You're listening to Sweet Life, the show that helps you find and walk your own special path. I'm Brooke Peterson. Here on Sweet Life, we like to explore unconventional career possibilities, self-discovery, professional development, and more. Whatever helps and whatever works to make it sweet. Organization, it seems like, is what everybody ends up talking about when we talk about other things. Time management, stress management, procrastination. It all seems to go back to organization. And so today, author, speaker, consultant, professional organizer, Maria Gracia founded Get Organized Now in 1996. Her broad range of skills covers clutter control, scheduling, space planning, time and paper management, filing systems, and more. Maria is the author of Finally Organized, Finally Free for the Home, and Finally Organized, Finally Free for the Office. Both have been read by thousands of people all over the world. Thank you for joining us, Maria Gracia.
Thanks for having me, Brooke.
Really appreciate it. Okay, so let's just get started. Now, I know people seem to think that, if they have a clean home or everything is neat and tidy, that means they're organized. Is that true?
The way I think about organizing, and a lot of people think that, to be organized is to be neat. And the truth is that you could be neat and you could still be pretty disorganized. For example, you could have very neat piles, all over your house, But if you can't find what you need in those piles, then, that's not completely organized, What I like to think is, when it comes to organizing, that you can find everything you need when you need it, and you get everything done when it's due without stress. So if you have those two elements in your life, if you're a little sloppy, it's okay, you can still be organized.
Without stress, that's the key.
Yes, that is definitely the key.
Now, for these ideas, like these strategies or systems we're going to talk about, can they be applied to home and office, or are they separate?
I always think of organization as one thing that you go to. You can use it at home, you can use it at the office, you can use it with your kids. All of the tips apply to all areas of your life.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. They just sort of get adapted to whatever you need, I guess.
They do. Absolutely. You can apply, anything. You can apply, for example, I was just telling somebody today at lunch about this little game that we play with kids to help them put their stuff away faster. And it's just basically a 15-minute timer game. You set the timer for 15 minutes, and the kids kind of run around and put all their toys away. And that system can easily apply to yourself as an adult. You can put the timer on for 15 minutes and play beat the clock when it comes to your cleaning or your office things. Or, it could be a game for your employees to get a project done and to win a prize. So, I think it applies all the way around.
I think that the TikTok would make me stressed out.
That's almost good, though, sometimes. Just a little bit of stress just to get it done, but then you can give yourself a big reward at the end, All
right. Well, I'm all for rewards.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about when we talk about organization? Are we talking about files and folders or scheduling? What is it? What is organization?
Organization can really focus on so many things in your life. The way I like to see organization is that it's anything that you do that helps to make your life just a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. So if you have piles of paper on your desk and you can't find the bill that you're looking for, well, that's not making your life easier. That's making your life harder. If you have a schedule that's so jam-packed that you can't even find time to go out to lunch with a friend, then that's a form of disorganization. So it's all of these little tactics and systems that you use throughout your day just to make life a little more pleasant for yourself and to kind of clear the way for you to get things done and to, go on vacation, basically.
Okay. Well, how do you help people get started?
A lot of people, when they come to me, the biggest problem is that they're just so overwhelmed. Mm. And I think that's one of the first areas to tackle with people, because if you are feeling overwhelmed, that's almost like a paralyzing factor, so you kind of have to take away that overwhelming feeling. And what I usually have people do is talk to me and tell me the areas of their life that they just feel like are the worst for them. What's your biggest problem? Is it your piles of paper? Is it your kids are not helping out at home? Is it your schedule? And really zone in on what exactly it is that's bothering them the most, and then to take that thing and slice it and dice it into the smallest common denominator, something that they can actually tackle and accomplish, whether it's weeding out one file folder or setting up a family meeting or, maybe hiring somebody new at the office. There's so many things, depending on what the problem is. But just bringing the big problem down to a really small, very accomplishable goal.
What does the family meeting do? What is that for?
The family meeting, it's an interesting thing because very often families get overwhelmed because there's such a lack of communication. You have your kids out at the soccer game and dad's at work and mom's probably at work and at home running kids from one thing to the next. And there's very little time for the family to get together and kind of, chat about the schedule, discuss who's going to be doing what, maybe par down on some of the activities that are going on to make things a little easier, maybe get carpooling set up. So, the family meeting is kind of like, get together for those 30 minutes. Sit down, communicate with each other about what's going on, listen to each other, and, maybe get some things down on paper so you can mind map a little bit because, it's really the only time when, these families can, kind of coordinate with each other.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how old? Obviously, it's the entire family. How old are kids? When they start being included in the family meetings.
Honestly, with my child is 9 now, and we've been including her in the family meeting since she was like 3. Because to me, and obviously, you're not going to be talking about really high level things with a 3-year-old, but certainly a 3-year-old can learn to do very, very simple things. So if mom needs some help around the house, and that's what the family meeting theme of the night is, maybe that child can be taught to fold a shirt at that meeting. Something really, really simple.
That's really
cool.
But
I do feel like little tiny and it's interesting because the younger the kids are, the more they want to be there. It's more of a problem, I think, when the kids are teenagers than when they're really, really little,
Right. Now, okay, so say, for instance, it's a scheduling issue and you just don't seem to have enough time for anything. How does that go back to organization? How do you fix that?
Yeah, well, a scheduling thing. So you're saying if the schedule is kind of too packed up at that point?
Yeah, like you mentioned not being able to have lunch with a girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah, okay. So, all right, the scheduling thing, I think, and this really goes back to what your goals, in life are. You have a schedule that, let's say, you're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're racing off to work and, you're coming home at night and then you're running off to the PTA meeting and this and that and the other thing. And it's kind of like, if you want to have that time in your schedule for your girlfriends or your husband or your children, you really have to include that time as you would a dental appointment. It's kind of like, okay, I really need this, I really need to treat this hour of my day for this person as a very important hour here and not allow other things to take over. Now, of course, when you have like a really busy life, that could be, a challenge for some people, of course, but then in that case, it's important to find ways to streamline what you're currently doing, find ways that you can do what you're doing, the work stuff, a little quicker so that you have a little more padding time in your day for the fun things. You don't want to be working all day long.
Right.
I certainly don't. What I try to do with my schedule, whenever I'm making my schedule, I try to always pad fun things in between. So, I might say, okay, I'm going to complete this 30-minute project, and then I'm going to give my mom a call, and then I'm going to complete another 30-minute project, and then I'm going to, maybe scrapbook for a half an hour. You know what I mean? It's like, try to, keep your day fun. Now, if you're working in an office, that might not totally work because I don't think your boss would be too happy if you're on the phone for half an hour, but you can still schedule little things throughout your day, just those little rewards to kind of keep you going. A walk to the water cooler or, chit-chat with a coworker for 5 minutes in between because, if you feel like you're just working all day, that's just going to drag you down.
Yeah, definitely. And so what happens, though, when that project that you thought was going to take 30 minutes takes an hour and a half?
And that happens very often, and that's why I always recommend to people that, if you think a project's going to take 30 minutes, you almost have to pad it by another 30, just to make sure, because most of us tend to underestimate the amount of time we think that something's going to take, So I think that if you actually start padding time in your schedule, you won't run into that very often. And as a matter of fact, you may end up getting a couple of things done a little earlier and having more time. So pretty much I usually double the amount of time. If I think it's going to take an hour, I will almost all the time schedule 2 hours, because then if you get it done, you can always do something else while you're waiting for the next thing to start.
That just seems
but
like
you won't be super late for appointments and stuff like that.
Right, right. But it almost seems like it makes it harder just to schedule all the stuff you have to get scheduled if everything takes so much longer than you think it's going to.
Well, it's true. And, I think just as humans, I think that we want to get so much done in our days, and sometimes it almost needs to be, take a step back and just think for 15 minutes about what's really the most important things to do here, because very often we do things just out of habit, or, we might do things because we absolutely think we have to do it, but we're not really thinking about whether that thing is really going to impact, your life or not.
Yep.
So, it's almost really important to, what I usually tell people to do when they're feeling overwhelmed is just to put up a big stop sign and absolutely stop everything you're doing for 15 minutes, because sometimes it just takes a moment of thought to kind of look at your day and to figure out, why am I doing this? Why am I running around like a chicken without a head?
Right.
Let me think about this. Let me cut some of these things off of, out of my schedule.
Right.
Let me see how I can streamline this project, or let me see how somebody can help me out so I can get this done without, getting overwhelmed and without feeling like, I'm working 24 hours a day.
Yeah, pump the brakes, take a breather. Yeah, that's great advice. And when we come back, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to start getting practical, talk about some space management. I'm going to ask you, FYI, what some of your favorite organizing tools are. So think about that for just a minute. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation, and we're going to get ourselves organized with Maria Gracia of GetOrganizedNow.com. You're listening to Sweet Life on LancerRadio.org. We'll be right back. This is Sweet Life. I'm Brooke Peterson, bringing to you every week whatever helps and whatever works to help make it sweet. This is LancerRadio.org, streaming live from the beautiful campus of Pasadena City College. And today we are talking with Maria Gracia from GetOrganizedNow.com, and we're talking about organization, which is critical to just about anything else we want to do to manage our lives. So, Maria, before the break, I posed to you, what is your favorite bunch of tools that you would recommend that people have? Do I need to get a label maker?
You could get a label maker if you'd like, and that kind of depends on your personality, I think. The thing with a label maker is, especially, if you're using it for your file folders, is that, every time you feel like you need to make a label, now you have to go get the label maker, So, whereas it might be easier just to grab a pen and jot something down on a label. So it kind of depends on your personality, but it can certainly help.
Okay, so what else, what do you recommend for people to just get started with their basic systems of organization?
Sure. Well, if it's home organization, if you're trying to contain like piles of clutter, maybe toys, maybe cleaning products, things like that in your house, definitely baskets and bins. Although, I think very often what happens is that people will run out and buy baskets and bins without really thinking about what they're trying to organize. What I always do is say, figure out what you're trying to organize first, and then find a container that will fit those items, because otherwise you're going to end up with like a whole closet full of baskets that don't fit what you need. And you don't have to go out and spend lots of money. If you need like something small to contain something, let's say you want to contain like your daughter's ponytail holders or something like that. You can get, a simple, tin can that the, tomatoes come in, use one of those can openers that doesn't leave a sharp edge. And then you can use some of that really cool duct tape, around the can. They have like leopard skin and all that kind of stuff now. So, you don't have to go out and spend, tons of money. You can make your own storage. You can get, shower curtain rods, for example, and you can get the little shower curtain hooks, and you can hook them over the rod, and you can use those to hang scarves in your closet. Really, really simple. You can get a cork board with thumbtacks, push pins rather, and use the push pins to hang necklaces on, and your necklaces will never be tangled again, and they'll be on this pretty display in the bedroom. So, lots of unconventional stuff, just a little creativity, go on Pinterest for sure, because you'll find a lot of very cool things that you can just make yourself, you know.
Okay.
But of course, if you're trying to file papers, you know, of course I recommend, you know, your typical file folders. You can use a label maker for that if you want. You don't have to. I do recommend with file folders that especially if you hate to file, to choose ones that are in pretty colors because, you know, the more you like your file folders, the more you're going to keep them nice, you know, and not just ripped and torn, you know, in a drawer somewhere, you know.
Right.
Pick things that you really enjoy looking at and you enjoy using, and you'll be more likely to use them as organizing solutions. You know?
Yeah, that's great advice. And it's true, like, especially now, you know, at Office Max or Staples or wherever else, anywhere, I guess, they have all kinds of different, it's so geared toward women. You can totally see it's all the flowery, pretty colors. It's all I can do not to buy it. But yeah, it does make it more fun when something's pretty.
It really does. And, you know, I think that, you know, it's not the rocket science things that are really helpful, you know. I mean, gosh, I have made so much good use out of just simple things like command hooks, you know, just these, you know, just hooks that you can put on the wall to hang purses and wreaths and things like that. Your typical shoe holders that are in the store can hold things other than shoes. You know, they have these over-the-door plastic see-through shoe holders that we've organized, you know, Barbie clothes into, you know, Matchbox cars, you know, for some of my clients. Just, you know, just fun little things that you can, you know, look at. They're fun. You don't mind them being out in the open. You know, but they're still helping you keep things contained. And I think that's the important thing, you know, keeping similar items together and in one place, and then especially when you're done with an item, putting it back in its home, you know? And, you know, then you don't spend time, millions of hours looking for things, and, you know, you have these pretty containers and you know where everything is. And
I think for myself, one of the biggest clues and keys I ever figured out for staying organizing is just taking a moment to give a home to something, make it have a place to go to, so that when it's just sitting there, I can put it someplace, and I know where it's supposed to go, and it makes it so much easier. But that sort of leads me to my next thought, though, is especially after having lived in New York City for a while, what happens if you just don't have much space? Like, where do you put the bins and the baskets and the...
Yeah, and, you know, I actually am from the East Coast, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, when you have a smaller space, there's no doubt about it, you can't have as much as you would have in, you know, a large 4-bedroom house. So it's very important, number one, before you, you know, think about your baskets and bins, to make sure that you only have things that you really love and that you use. And that's a big thing, because in the average household, people only use like 20% of all of the stuff that they own.
I so believe that.
You know, and that's definitely going to be, you know, one of those things that you have to focus on if you live in a small space. So once you know, feel like you've gotten down to your, you know, you've simplified and you only have the important stuff, then it's kind of thinking about some storage that you can like put maybe like shelving on your wall. You can add a lot of additional storage with additional shelving. You can put an extra rod in your closet very often, you know, shorter items, you know, shirts on the top and then skirts on the bottom rather than having one big rod going across. You can keep some storage out in the open. You know, I've had people before take you know, regular cardboard boxes and cover them with a beautiful fabric, and now all of a sudden it's not a cardboard box. It's this beautiful fabric-covered storage system that you can have right out in your bedroom or your living room, you know. You can even take a very pretty tablecloth or a very pretty quilt or throw and put it over a table and have some storage under that table. You know, so it definitely does take a little more creativity, but it can be done, you know. I've even seen, one time I went to a house and this woman had this, it was like a 3-tiered plant, fruit holder, you know, where you would normally keep like bananas or oranges and apples. And it was like 3-tiered, but it was hanging from a chain from the ceiling in her bathroom. And they had all sorts of hairbrushes, you know, in one section and all sorts of toiletries on another section. And I thought it was such a good idea because, you know, she didn't have a whole lot of space in the bathroom, no cabinets, no under the sink storage or anything. But she kind of made her own storage
Yeah. I should have the same exact thing in my room.
Just kind of, keeping an eye on the magazines, especially the picture stuff, Pinterest, stuff like that. I think, even on my website, I try to post a lot of this kind of stuff on my Facebook page because it's just fun things that you wouldn't normally think of, the unconventional storage.
Yeah, covering things up with prettier, more public types of things. Yeah, that's a great idea. And I was just going to say that tier thing, I have it in my room hanging from the ceiling, and it holds my hats. I have all my hats.
How awesome is that? I mean, that's great.
It is great. It's come in handy. In New York, it held fruit. Now it holds hats. So now I feel like some people, with organization, they hear organization and they kind of feel like, oh, I don't know. I think they think that being organized just means that a person is really rigid or structured and not much fun. Like it's not cool to be super organized or whatever. They perceive it as a negative personal image. Like, what would you say to them?
And it is kind of fun because if you do watch a TV show, it's always the rigid person, that they're making fun of. Right. But, the way I say it is, and if you knew me personally, you would say I'm not rigid hardly at all, And I think that's because that I've just given myself so much time in my schedule. I kind of plan for spontaneity. And,
that's so funny.
I have time in my day that if somebody calls me and says, can you stop by for an hour? I can definitely do that because the rest of my day is so scheduled that it's not a problem, to fit in these extra things. I have these 2 hours of free time already scheduled in. When you're organized, you're not spending hours and hours looking for things, like a lost bill. When you're organized, you are not missing appointments because you forgot to put it on your calendar, so I feel, in my mind that organization just makes your life so much easier in so many ways. And it's not a hard thing to be organized. In fact, I think it's so much harder to be disorganized because you're spending so much time doing unproductive things.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Maria Gracia.
You're very welcome. It's so fun talking to you.
I'm going to tell everybody to go to your website. She has a great website, getorganizednow.com, and there's tons of information, lots of free tips and tricks, lists, ideas, scheduling tips, and sort of she takes a month and blocks something out every single day for you, so to keep you on track.
You've been listening to Sweet Life. I'm Brooke Peterson. You can like us on Facebook by searching Sweet Life Radio Show. Until next time, make it sweet.